2022. We at the Las Vegas right now, airport, Las Airport. With the plane going to fly to Florida, Fort Lauderdale, to take the cruise ship, San Juan Day cruise ship.
Welcome aboard Spirit Airlines. You're on flight number 954 with services to Fort Lauderdale. Today we have some exciting news to share. The new free Spirit loyalty program has launched, and it is the fastest way to earn rewards and status. And it will make it easier for everyone to enjoy rewards regardless of how frequently they travel. Visit spirit.com/freespirit to learn more.
Las Vegas. By night.
During its rainy season every year, but this year's disaster is the worst in more than a decade. Since the end of July, the West African country has been grappling with the flooding affecting 31 of its 36 states, including here, the capital Abuja. Some communities entirely flattened, schools submerged, infrastructure, bridges, roads badly damaged, making transportation extremely difficult. In one incident last weekend, dozens of people, mainly women and children, drowned after their boat capsized in the southeastern state of Anambra as they tried to flee flood waters that inundated their community. The authorities are saying so far across the country, hundreds of people have died and 1,500 others have been wounded, and more than 1 million have been displaced. Tens of thousands of houses and large swathes of farmland have also been destroyed. Emergency agencies have been struggling to help victims with relief items. The floods, according to officials, are caused by heavy rains and emergency release of excess waters from dams within Nigeria and in neighboring Cameroon by the authorities. And rivers too are busting their banks. Experts also partly blame the flooding on the impact of climate change. The Nigerian authorities are now warning that states in the central and southern parts of the country are likely to experience more floods in the coming weeks. There are fears of outbreak of waterborne diseases because of the contamination of water sources. And the levels of destruction of farmland and massive displacement of farmers by the floods have also raised fears of food shortages in Africa's most populous country.
Ishaq Khalid, let's hear now from people affected in Lokoja in central Nigeria.
The smell was terrible. When you're dancing, the water coming, don't know where it's coming from, just coming. It's terrible. It's not an experience I wish anybody to experience.
We temporarily relocated and we are back. However, we are appealing to government.
Let's get more on the story now. I'm joined by the BBC's Azizat Olaoluwa, who's been monitoring the situation from the commercial capital, Lagos. Azizat, people are not only blaming the rivers bursting their banks.
In order to solve the problem, but this of course creates air pollution because of the toxic fumes created by the piles of rubbish. There is everything here from household items to clothing, but there's especially a ton of plastic.
In 2021, the Congolese government banned the production, import, marketing and use of plastic packaging, but the ban did not include plastic bottles that can take up to 450 years to naturally decompose.
It's unbearable. Nobody's taking responsibility for it. There are no sites in our communities where we can dump our waste. Everything we throw out is thrown back into the environment.
At present, there is no nationwide waste management system in the DRC. Recycling initiatives are also few. That's why Paul has decided to find a solution of his own, making tables, chairs and plant pots out of recycled tires. Because DRC has the second largest rainforest in the world, the president of the country has described the nation as a solution country to the climate crisis. But the reality in the capital city is one of widespread pollution. The BBC reached out to the government for comment, but it hasn't received a response. For Paul, now is the time to act.
I think we've done enough talking. There needs to be more of an effort to change. Waste causes illnesses. Taking care of the environment means protecting ourselves and living longer.
But despite individual initiatives and growing international pressure, the country still has a long way to go to manage its waste problem. Joyce Tutu, BBC News, Kinshasa.
Well, in many ways, the Danish territory in Greenland is on the front line of climate change. Today, its ice cap is the single biggest contributor to global sea level rises. Arctic temperatures have risen faster than anywhere else, and what happens to the ice sheet and the glaciers will impact the rest of the globe. In the north of Greenland, people have lived on and thrived in one of the world's toughest environments. For local communities, climate change feels close since August. Data from the World Health Organization show that this is the worst outbreak this year globally. The BBC's Emmanuel Ligunza has this report.
Malawi is in the grips of a deadly outbreak of cholera. Everywhere you go, there is a constant reminder of the dangers the infection poses. Since March, scores of people have died, and over the past 2 months, the cases of infections have tripled and set off alarm bells ringing here in Malawi and among global health experts.
What happened is that in most of the places where cholera cases have come from, we've got poor water supply, as well as sanitation is also poor. And at the same time, what we discovered also as a common factor was related to do with food hygiene. I think most of the people that had suffered from cholera had the core of eating food that is not well prepared, or maybe at the market or other places, maybe some other gatherings.
The first cholera case was detected in the southern district of Machimba before quickly spreading to 22 of Malawi's 28 districts. The World Health Organization has described the outbreak as unprecedented, erupting even as the government continued to carry out mass vaccinations against cholera.
For its part, the World Health Organization has trained over 1,000 health workers on cholera treatment, surveillance, and case management, while providing expertise in reach.
A recent polio outbreak, and now an infection threatening to spread throughout the country. Malawi's economy is struggling, and experts warn that with no money to deal with this outbreak, one of the world's poorest countries could be staring into a bleak future. Emmanuel Ligunza, BBC News.
Between 15 and 20 years under protection last month, following a police raid on suspects allegedly involved in cybercrime. Thomas Nadi reports from Accra.
The rescued human trafficking victims were between the ages of 15 and 20. They were repatriated on Tuesday with the help of Nigerian authorities. Ghana's Economic and Organized Crime Office says that the trafficking victims were rescued during a raid on a house in the Ghanaian capital last month. They've also said that the victims were undergoing training in cybercrime when security personnel raided the building. 7 suspected members of the gang have been arrested and charged with engaging in organized crime, human trafficking, and assault. If found guilty, they could face a maximum of 5 years imprisonment. Thomas Nadi, BBC News, Accra.
You're watching BBC Focus on Africa. Let's catch up with some sports now, Piers.
Thank you very much, Peter. Boxing coming up, but we start with the Champions League as the competition is being played at quite a pace ahead of next month's World Cup. All the groups will be finished ahead of the tournament in Qatar, meaning that it's the 4th round of 6 games in tonight's matches. We'll have reaction from last night coming up. The first 2 games are already underway. In Napoli, where an Ajax side including Ghana's Mohamed Kudus and Nigerian Calvin Bassey were thumped 6-1 last week. They're both in the side again and doing it smidge better. 2-0 they'll trail at half-time.
Abundance of this raw material. Now, the Portuguese navigators who came to these islands in 1419 immediately recognized the commercial potential here, not only for trade, but also as sourcing these raw materials for ship construction. Its strategic location was additionally a bonus as well. Now, soon after the settlement, Prince Henry of Portugal, known as Henry the Navigator, decided that the islands needed to be more of a crop producer, so he introduced sugarcane that was imported from Sicily to these islands. Now, Madeira's sugar trade, it quickly grew to the point that by the 1490s, Madeira was the top producer of sugar in the entire world at that time, with Dutch, Flemish, and Genoese traders all stopping here at Madeira. Now, during the height of the sugar production, unfortunately, like in many parts of the world that had high sugar trade at that time, around 10% of the island's population was made up of slave labor. Now, with the rapid expansion through that sugar period came the result of this big boom in the sugarcane industry, and Funchal eventually became this big commercial center and one of the major sugar markets in the Atlantic. It reached it in places like the Funchal Cathedral, as well as the Museum of Sacred Art. Now, something else that is important to know, in the late 1500s, as sugar cultivation moved across to the Americas, the sugar plantations were replaced by vineyards. Now, much of the wine production was controlled by the English merchants who settled on the island in the 1600s, and they oversaw the growing wine culture here and powered these markets in North America of their ailments. Now, throughout the 19th century, the island welcomed poets and writers, politicians, and aristocrats, and then it was very closely followed by the introduction of general tourism. Now, the first guide set up shop in Madeira in the 1850s and shared the history, geology, flora and fauna, and customs of the island with its visitors. Then over 100 years later, Madeira earned its administrative political autonomy in 1976, becoming officially an autonomous region of Portugal. So where do we arrive into? So we're coming into Funchal, which is on the southern side of the island here. Beautiful place to come into, wonderful scenery on the approach into the downtown area of Funchal. As we zoom in here a little bit, you can see the cruise port area. In a lot of these presentations over the next couple of months, I'll show a series of different maps for you. If it's photos that I show, images of maps, photos of places, please feel free. If you want to take photographs of these slides, you absolutely can do. Sometimes things that we do here in the theater, for example, tonight we have a show with high energy dancing and singing with performers in heels, and we say please no flash photography for the safety of the performers. If you take a photo and I fall over on stage, it's just going to be entertaining for all of you. I really don't mind. It's fairly stable up here, so please, if you think it's going to be a helpful reference, again, they will play back on the televisions as well if you do find it useful too. But this shows the pond area where the cruise ships, an artificial sort of port area that's been developed here for cruise ships to arrive into. And it is, we're going to touch on a lot of the points of interest in the town, show some of the architecture, the history, and the points of interest. I'm also going to talk, I know some of you will have done it before if you've been to Funchal as well, but I also think if you haven't been there before, there's an activity that you can do in Funchal that is, I think, one of the most fun things you can do in probably any of these ports of call, so we're going to talk about that too. But we'll touch on Funchal first. And then if you've been here before, you're looking for something a little bit different, there are some other options that are a little bit further from Funchal. If you want to see a little bit more of the island of Madeira, that is possible as well. But as I say, first and foremost, we'll start around the city centre area. Now, this is surrounded by hills and there's tropical vegetation as well. And the centre of Funchal, it does feel absolutely Portuguese, but there is heavy British influence as well. The reason for the combination of the British influence as well as the Portuguese was due to a mid-16th century marriage of the Portuguese Princess Catherine to England's King Charles II. Now, this marriage gave the right for English people to come and live on Madeira, and it opened up that wine market we were discussing earlier, and it had sort of invited many British families to come here to Funchal and many other people across Europe, and sometimes you started to see these really famous people coming here for vacations like George Bernard Shaw and Winston Churchill. Churchill used to come here all the time. He used to love painting Madeira, so he would go along to a lot of the coastline and set up his easel, and there's all of these really great historic photos of just Churchill sitting there painting along the coastline. Really, really interesting. That being said, there are people that came to visit here, but talk possibly can to get you as prepared for these ports.
That's dangerous. Brandishing headscarves, burning them, can get you arrested.
Iran.
Hundreds have been detained. This may seem so ordinary, but even walking without compulsory hijab can have consequences. Dunia Rod, in a white shirt eating breakfast, went to prison after she posted this photo. Across Iran over the past month, there have been unprecedented scenes like this. And this too, schoolgirls ripping photos of Iran's leaders. This defiance spread across society, across generations,
protests
on wider issues. And security forces have shot back with tear gas, metal pellets, live fire. One protester who, like most, hides her identity, told us it's no longer just about hijab.
They don't want Islamic Republic with all the violence it's doing, things that they have done politically to us, economically to us, and what they're showing as the face of Iranian to the world, and this is what we do not want it.
Power resides here in the Islamic Republic. The supreme leader, 83-year-old Ayatollah Khamenei, has said little, but he's blaming the West.
These recent matters are not homegrown and spontaneous. It's possible that the enemy used some pretext to pursue their agenda using provocative propaganda.
Wishful thinking.
Those who back the government deny the Islamic Republic is at risk or even rattled.
There are very few protests. The country is quiet.
We see them every day, Professor Naharandi. That's factually incorrect.
The United States and its allies try to undermine Iran in every possible way. Iran is more open than any of the countries in this region.
What we see says these protests aren't dying down, and the government isn't backing down. In London, a vigil to mark a month of defiance, to remember 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. Her death sparked this movement.
Protests like this have been happening in cities across the world over the past month. What's happening now in Iran, what happens next, matters in many places. But the course of events inside Iran will be decided there.
A young generation rises against an old clerical order. It's hard to say how and when this will end. For now, it's moving in ways Iran hasn't seen before. Lise Doucette, BBC News.
Well, on video that have further angered people on the street, take a look at this. This latest video, which happened in Tehran's Argentina Square on Wednesday, shows a group of officers. In the video, it appears an officer gropes a young woman. The footage has been verified by the BBC's Persian service, and Tehran's police public relations office say they are investigating the incident. Well, joining inflamed by actions of the security forces.
That's right, and it's important to understand that these sorts of incidences and reports of misbehaviour by security forces, the Basij, as well as Revolutionary Guards, aren't new. They've been reported for a long time, but the difference is that Iranians are feeling more empowered to catalogue each event, and that the world is watching. It's also why the internet is so important to protesters right now, because it's allowing them to galvanise support and continue their momentum. It's also why the government has consistently, each time there's been dissent in Iran, the last time was 2019, those big protests, that's why the government keeps causing internet blackouts, because it's to stifle that momentum and stifle the fact that the world will start condemning these sorts of actions. But as in the case of this video, protesters are still managing to show the world what's happening on the ground, either by managing to put it on social media, sometimes using VPNs, or by sending it directly to media organizations like BBC Persian, so that these events can be catalogued for the record. Now, in the instance of this video, the Tehran police have acknowledged that it happened. They've said that there's an investigation that's ongoing, but it was a bit of a begrudging statement, because they also said that the West and Iran's enemies are continuing to use psychological warfare to incite violence and unrest in the country, and that's a government line.
And as today, what has been the response from the government?
Well, President Raisi, as well as the Supreme Leader, have continued to use the same line, a line that they use every single time there's dissent within the country, which is that this is the United States and Israel's fault. It's the West and Iran's enemies who are inciting unrest. But the Supreme Leader did go further today and also said that that Iran's enemies and people should understand that no one should dare think that they can overthrow the Islamic Republic. Now, another thing that's important to note is the fact that in addition to the brutal crackdown that's going on, all these images of shots being fired by security forces, things that the BBC has verified, the government is also trying to win the hearts and minds. Now, I want to show viewers a billboard that was put up in Tehran's Vali Asr Square. It's one of the most prominent squares in Tehran. And it shows a number of prominent Iranian women with hijabs, with their veils, and it says, "The women of my homeland Iran," trying to show unity. The problem is a lot of these women did not give their consent for that billboard, and so the billboard had to be taken down within 24 hours because at least 3 women took to social media and said that they had not given their consent, including a prominent Iranian actress who was in tears and called officials murderers. So it shows how much the government is struggling and with grappling how to deal with this unrest 4 weeks on.
Asadi, thank you. The actor Robbie Coltrane has died.
Enters its 5th week of nationwide protests sparked by the death in custody of a young woman who was detained for not correctly wearing the mandatory headscarf. The internet has also been shut down across much of the country, but videos have emerged showing protests in a dozen cities, including the capital. Well, in the northwestern city of Ardabil, there have been running battles between security forces and protesters, throwing rocks and chanting "Death to the Dictator." Well, I'm joined now by the BBC's Middle East editor, Sebastian Usher. So, Sebastian, just looking at these latest reports, we've got fires, running battles. Bring us up to date with the details we do know and what this means.
Well, the most dramatic thing that's happened in the past half hour or so is, as you were saying there, this fire that has broken out at Evin prison in Tehran. This is where, again, as you were saying, hundreds of political prisoners have been held for years. Dual nationals, Nazanin Zaghari-Ratcliffe was held there. We only have these videos at the moment to go on, but what is clear from that is that this is a fire on a very big scale. The BBC Persian has just spoken to a lawyer with a client in the prison who is saying what he's heard, that the riot police have entered the prison. Also, the families, of course, of the prisoners are gathering with great concern over what's happening. There are other reports that I've seen appearing talking about prisoners on the roof. It's unclear whether this is a demonstration, perhaps by the prisoners in support of the protests that have been going on, as you say now, into their 5th week, or something else has happened there. As I say, it's unclear. We don't have anything official from the Iranians so far, and we have very little from inside, but people inside prison do have phones, so if there is the possibility of them being able to speak, I think we probably will get a better idea of the situation relatively soon.
Before we discuss some of the other protests that are taking place in the country, Sebastian, what more can you tell us about Evin? It is described as notorious.
Well, yes, it is notorious because it's essentially where political prisoners are sent, and it gets particular attention worldwide because, as I was saying, dual nationals are there. So obviously British prisoners, the most famous, of course, Nazanin.
Created by Oscar winner Hans Zimmer along with Jacob Shade. Now get ready to explore our 7 continents in a stunning visual and musical journey featuring the wonderfully talented Zaandam musicians. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 7 Worlds, 1 Planet.
Many of the demonstrations are still being driven by young women and school children. It's nearly a month since these protests began, following the death in police custody of a 22-year-old woman.
Thrilled to welcome
Prison, after what state media say has been a riot. The jail has been set on fire. Hundreds of political prisoners and journalists are held at the prison. Duncan Kennedy, BBC News.
Lives with her 6 daughters.
Syria.
Sharifa is blind in one eye and has partial sight in the other. For the past month, they've been going on TikTok Live. It's work, but they have limited options to earn a living in the camp and meet their basic needs.
بحكي عن قصتي عن العيشة شلون عايشين بالمخيمات وشلون تشردنا وعن وضع هاي البنت. مشان العالم تدعمني ويساعدوني انه يصير عندي مصروف لهي واقدر اسوي عملية بنتي.
Syria.
Mona and her daughters go live for 2 or 3 hours at a time, several times a day.
كثير بحبكم كثير بحبكم كثير. الأولاد كمان بيطلعوا معي على البث ويطلبون هدايا إنهم فرحانين بالهدية ومنهم من يفرحوا أنا أفرح معهم.
To go live on TikTok, you need at least 1,000 followers. Then, when you're live, users can send digital gifts to reward creators for content they like. These gifts are bought with real money, ranging from roses, which cost a few cents, to lions and universes, which cost around $500 each. The gifts are converted to a virtual currency that you can withdraw as cash.
Look, they've got a private jet.
Oh, that's why they're happy.
They're really happy, they're celebrating.
We wanted to find out how people who've lost everything in Syria's civil war were suddenly all able to broadcast on TikTok. The person filming Mona's live stream is Hamid, who also lives in the camp and sold his livestock to buy the phone.
سمعت بالتيك توك من شي 6 أشهر. الناس كلياتها هجمت على التيك توك. ما في حدا هون يشتغل على التيك توك. قمت أنا اشتغلت وأجوا أولاد عمي 3 4 اشتغلوا معي.
Now he works with 12 different families, and he's known in the camp as a TikTok middleman. Mohammed asked him how it all worked.
التيك توك احنا ندخل عن طريق اللايف البث المباشر. تجينا هدايا مثلا وردات، كل 100 وردة عليها $1. نضل عم تجمع فيه الرصيد لحتى يصيروا $100. بروح وين على الداعم وين بدانا. بسحب منه عن طريقة البرنامج والتيك توك. يكون عندي حساب رابطه على بطاقتي.
He says he does this to help the families make a living.
صورت هاي العيلة الحمد لله، وأنا مجبورة أعطي كل شيء للعيلة، بس العيلة مجبورة إنه تعطيني بس مصروفي يعني مراسلات كشبكة نت.
TikTok's algorithm suggests content based on where your SIM card comes from. Hamid told us he buys British SIM cards to get British viewers because he says they're the most generous gifters. We found kiosks selling them near the camp. That explains why TikTok users in the UK had been seeing these live streams and even joining in.
St. John Church. Chưa vô. Này còn đây. Ồ, chợ này hay quá. Hay quá. Đừng móc túi hợp. Đừng móc túi nha. Nè, em nó đâu có gì chụp rồi, nó chụp rồi mà.
Đẹp màu mè đẹp hơn.
Foi janela, a janela para fora da escola, a gaja está lá. Já, fui fazer uma merda, desse é que eu vou fazer. Mas o que é que eu ia perguntar, caralho? Não, na segunda semana.
Không.
Director của mình là bên tay phải anh nè. Đúng không?
Có thể.
Đúng rồi.
À. Cái giọng nói nó. Không biết nói mà giọng nói nó giống. Này giống mình nói là cô cô Today is the October 18, 2022. The ship leaving. Right now, the ship leaving Marina, Portugal, and go to Spain, Canary Island. This is a vacation island of Portugal. We're leaving Medina, island of Portugal. Today is October 19, 2022. The ship arrived Agadir. Gasoline Arafi in Casablanca. Arafi, Casablanca. About 100 volcano on this island.
Good morning, Canberra. This is Jeremy speaking from Auckland. Our seat here in the Canary Islands. Someone has no back on board on flight blue. Just say on time today.
With Javier, and then we have a point where group number 1, that's me, will leave the bus and we will starting our trekking tour. After nearly 2 or 3 minutes, the group number 2 with Maria will leave the bus and also starting their tour. Okay? So we have 2 points. The point where we leave, this is the first point with group number 1, and the second point, this is group number 2 with Maria. Okay? Yeah, and our Walking will be today something between 2.5, 3 hours, more or less. And we will be in a very special region of Lanzarote. We will be walking in the volcanic eruptions of 18th century here of Lanzarote. So only 300 years ago. And this landscape is looking like the moon. Okay? If somebody gets a photo from the Armstrong's footstep, I will give him a coffee. In the historic nuclear here, this is close to the sea front. This is the part of Arrecife who is very beautiful. You have there promenades, you are directly at the seafront, you have historic buildings, and you have also the biggest skyscraper from Lanzarote. You see here left-hand side, the biggest house of Lanzarote, the Arrecife Grand Hotel with nearly 17 stages. Yeah, so this at the seafront, you can have beautiful cafeterias. You can walk there through the avenues. They are very close together. And here on the right-hand side, we have the commercial heart from Lanzarote. We have a lot of supermarkets. We have the car hires. The lot of industrial factories, all in this stuff, lavanderies and so on. So this is right hand side the commercial heart here from Lanzarote. Left hand side, very important for us, our international airport. This is one of the biggest airports of Spain. We have nearly more than 7 million passengers per year. That means that we on top of the 10 on the list of the 10 biggest airports of Lanzarote of Spain. And in former times, nearly 2 or 3 years ago, this airport named Guasimeta. And Guasimeta, this was one of the queens of the natives of the origin of this airport is Cesar Manrique. And Cesar Manrique was a big architect and artist here on Lanzarote. He was the most important man of the 20th century. So the last 3 would get the name Cesar Manrique. Yeah, Lanzarote has not so much different touristic destination. We have here Puerto del Carmen with nearly 26,000 hotel beds, and then we have one in the south at the coastline to Fuerteventura with Playa Blanca, and then we have also another touristic destination here in the north, in the near of the harbor of Arrecife, Costa Teguise. It was a Spanish architect. He built this. Yeah, here in front of us we have one of the 2 big massives of Lanzarote. We have here Via Hatches. This is the oldest part of Lanzarote, and we have here nearly 17-18 million years. This is very old. We are the 2nd oldest island from the Canaries. Only our big sister, Fuerteventura, here in the south, she is older than us, nearly 21-22 million years old. But the rest of the other Canary Islands, they are all younger. If you now look left-hand side, you see also a little bit at the horizon. You see two massives. The oldest massive here, Achaches, and we have nearly 25 kilometers in the north. We have our second massive, that is Famara, and in former times, nearly 12, 15, 16 million years ago, Lanzarote were two islands. One in the south, here with the Achaches, and one in the north with Famara. And in 4 volcanic periods, get these two massives together, and we have now one island, Lanzarote. Here, our touristic destination in the south. It will be nearly 328 days of sun.
Oh,
there will
fun.
be only in Gran Canaria will be one town in the south of Gran Canaria. We have to, I think, 332. So we are nearly the island with the most sun of the Canaries.
So is it rain a lot in this
Raining?
island? Yeah.
No, we have no much rainfall.
Okay.
You are now in the period of rainfall. So in the last 2 weeks we have some rain. So you see all here a little bit green.
Yeah.
It's nearly island. It's similar like island. Because for us this is a lot of vegetation. Okay. Because normally we have during May till end of October, we have nearly no rainfall. But in the last 2-3 weeks, we had for Lanzarote enough rain, so now all is coming a little bit green. Normally, the big rainfalls from Lanzarote are now starting in end of October, November, December. So this is very unusual for this time, okay? Because normally we have till now not so much water. Okay. We are nearly in 5 minutes on the first point. We are stopping. And this is please the group number 1, and with me. If somebody wanted to get a water, I have here a bottle of water, so you can take here.
Oh, good.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So 5 minutes, and group number 1 has to leave the bus.
Thì nó thôi, dạo giờ đến gì đó.
you. Everything is very wetty when you are outside. And we are catching this morning dew with this stuff. If you are looking, there will be a lot of small, tiny little capillaries inside, okay? And these capillaries are catching the water, and during the morning, the water looks for the deepest point. At the deepest point, we have our plant we want to drain, okay? Here in this area, we have the vine. You see here, every hole has one wine plant.
Oh.
And so you have a natural draining system.
Oh, okay.
This is very good here in this area, because over there we have the Timanfaya, the national park. The new volcanoes, we are in 5 minutes, we are also in the volcanic fields here. And this pyroclastic material was brought in the 18th century at this region, okay? But also in the north or in the south, you have to bring this pyroclastic material on the fields like this, like the field here. And you have nearly 5 till 10 centimeters. And then you put there potatoes, onions, chicken peas, bam, 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 to have a natural draining system. Okay? Understand more or less?
Yeah.
There are two also positive things about this pyroclastic material. First, water. Second, for erosion. The soil, who will be 5 till 10 centimeters down there, cannot be eroded for the wind. And the third, you have it's black. So after sunset, you have all this very warm, and after sunset you have 1.5 to 2 hours more heat for the semen. This is very good for the semen. So you have these 3 positive things. Okay? One negative thing. Always there will be only the positive and negative.
Yes.
Always in life. One negative thing, because when you have it on your field, you put potatoes in, you put potatoes out, you put onions in, you put onions out. So you have a big movement. With the vine, you don't have a movement. You have one plant, that's okay. But when you have a field, on, out, on, out, on, out. So after 15-20 years, this capillaries of the pyroclastic material is full of dust. So they lost their capacity to catch water. So after 15-20 years, you have to put that away and get it once again more. Okay? Understand?
Yeah.
Very good. Great. This is one of the miracle of the wonder of Lanzarote. Without this natural draining system, we don't have so much people who can get something to this.
How many volcanoes on island and any active?
How many volcanoes we have here? We
This
have
island.
in total 130 volcanoes nearly, and here over there in the 18th century there were 26 volcanoes coming out in 6 years.
Any active?
No. This is a very bad question. The last eruption was in La Palma. It was in September last year, and normally you have statistically you have every 60 years you have a volcanic eruption, and the volcanic eruption go from northeast to the southwest of the Canaries. So it's, I think, 95% no.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. At the fields where we're coming up, there were these clusters of white rocks. What's the purpose?
White rocks here directly in the...
Right. There was little bunches.
Yes, like this one,
but they were
but white. It's a farmer's thing. So this is, so more or less, this is my territory, and this is the territory of another farmer.
Okay, so they're boundaries.
Okay. You have also a question over there, or you're fine?
We're fine.
Okay, so we go.
The cactus out there, they've been growing.
The cactus is was very important in the 19th century because you can eat the fruits, but don't touch them because they are very itchy. But they have put the louse on, the cochineal louse. And they have made colors. There was there was no artificial color. So you have only natural color. And to get to your next here, this jet, you need these Cucinellas. And they was putting there and growing there, and then they get killed them with water. And after this, they stamp it, and then they can make color. No, not anymore. Great.
What is this seaward he's trying to say? Capsules or capulars? Yeah, capulars.
So this is very, very much. And this was very important in former times because it was very easy to conserve. They are figs don't need so much water, and you take the fruits and you put it directly in the sun, and then you have to dry figs, and so it's you can conserve it very good. But this was also very, very important for wine.
Wine, okay.
Wine, yeah. Now you have to think about the wine, figs.
Good.
This sweet?
A lot of good things.
The thing is, we have to think about in this corner about the birds.
Oh, bug too.
And the birds are similar like men. They wanted the biggest burger, they wanted the biggest beer, they wanted the biggest car, something like this. And you have the figs have the same fruit period, like the grapes. So the bird is coming. On the left-hand side, the small, tiny little grapes. On the right-hand side, big. So the left nose, he goes to the right, and they will eat the figs.
Oh.
So it will be much more wine for us, much more grapes for us, so much more wine for us. Sometimes if we have not so much birds, we have also some fruits of the fig left, and then we get a very good marmalade. This is also a very product here from Lanzarote, the fig marmalade. Okay? But if you are looking here, when we go back, you will see in all these vineyards 2 or 3 fig trees for birds. Okay?
Yeah.
Now we are looking on the other side.
Okay.
We have here our crater of the crows, and this is very famous because this was the crater. Everything started in 1st of September in 1730. Was this the first point where a fissure opened and the lava spread out? So it's the most famous. Why? This is, yes, you are very good. This is a national park of Timanfaya over there. It was founded in the 70s over there, left hand side. But this was that we don't have here any electric pylons was a thing about Cesar Manrique. Okay, I have spoken about Cesar Manrique, you know, an airport name, Airport Bam Bam Bam. A very important man here in the 20th century. His buddy, his school friend, he was the president of the island. And these two making a lot of laws and a lot of rules. And one of the laws was, it was forbidden to build here some electric pylons or some human houses or something to get the landscape so like it is, you know. And this is here in the Timanfaya National Park and also in the Lajeria, in the vine area. So you don't, every house you see here in this zone, they only have electricity with windmill and with photovoltaic, with solar.
Solar.
This is very, you have to think about it, was in the 70s. In the 70s, and you have a beautiful landscape in Fuerteventura. You have a desert, very beautiful Paret in the south. But in this time, they have built an electric pylons, warm through all this. So this is, you disturb all the landscape, all the scenery, you know. So, and we have a lot of luck. Yes, this is one. You are very good, but this is for velocity, for speed limit. You have here a road. You see the road over there, and you're entering there, and you have to driving 60 kilometers.
You always slow. You always slow.
No, she walk good too. On the day she walk very fast. Just because she's not used to the, the surface like this. Uneven surface.
Say this will be here spring, but it's not a spring. No, it's a lie. This is only the water here from the Montaña Negra, from the Black Mountain, get together here at this point, and in former times they catch the water here for the fig trees. You see here right hand side and left hand side. All the fig trees here, the big fig trees, and also for the animals who are passing here. We have in former times a lot of goats. Okay, we had a lot of goats, and these goats need also a little bit of water. So this water here from this part of the Montaña Negra of the Black Mountain, all the morning dew get together here in this tiny little cistern, and from there you get the water for the plant.
So the water go